I want you to picture something. You're sitting at a restaurant. White tablecloths. Candles. Your parents ordered the good wine. You think, finally, a real birthday dinner. Maybe this year is different. And then your mom sets down her fork, looks you dead in the eyes, and says, "We need to tell you something. You were adopted. And honestly, you've served your purpose." She said that, word for word, on my 25th birthday. But here's what she didn't know, what neither of them knew. While they were planning that dinner, I had already been planning mine. And the people sitting 3 tables behind us, they weren't strangers. They were my blood. If you've ever been treated like a burden by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, stay with me, because this one's for every person who was used, discarded, and then had the audacity to rise. Drop it in the comments if you want to see them lose everything. Let's get into it. My name is Claire, and for 25 years I believed a lie so complete, so carefully constructed, that I built my entire identity on top of it. I believed I was loved. My parents, Richard and Diane Holloway, were what people in our suburb called put together. Dad was a regional manager for an insurance firm. Mom did interior design on a freelance basis, mostly for friends who felt obligated to hire her. They drove a Volvo. They went to church on Easter and Christmas. They smiled at neighborhood barbecues, and behind closed doors, they ran a household with one very clear, very unspoken rule: I was there to be useful. Nothing more. I didn't understand it as a child. I just thought I was the kind of kid who was hard to love. I got good grades, straight A's junior year, and my dad said, "Don't let it go to your head." My younger brother Theo got a C- in biology, and they took him out for ice cream to lift his spirits. Theo was their biological son. I didn't know that yet, but my body knew something was wrong long before my brain caught up. I paid for my own school supplies starting at age 14. I was told it was to build character. Theo's college application fees, SAT prep course, and campus visit flights were all covered without a single conversation. When I got into state university on a partial scholarship, my mom said, "Well, at least you'll be out of the house. No congratulations, no dinner, nothing." I told myself families were complicated. I told myself I was being sensitive. I worked 2 part-time jobs through college. Retail on weekends, tutoring on weeknights. I sent money home twice. Once when the water heater broke, and once when my dad said they were short on a car payment. I was 21 and eating instant noodles 4 nights a week, and I still sent them money because I thought that's what family does. I graduated, got a job at a mid-sized marketing firm, moved into a studio apartment 40 minutes from my hometown, and slowly, very slowly, I started to feel something unfamiliar. Stability, independence, a life that was actually mine. That's when they started calling more, not to check on me, to ask for things. Could I cover Theo's car insurance for a few months? Could I co-sign a credit card? Could I loan them $3,000 because Dad's bonus was delayed? I said yes, more than I should have. I said yes because I still believed, somewhere deep and embarrassing, that if I was useful enough, they would finally love me the way I always needed them to. Then I turned 25, and my mom called to say they wanted to take me to dinner. A real one. Somewhere nice, she said. Just the 3 of us. I remember feeling something dangerously close to hope. The restaurant was called Aldane's, linen napkins, a prefix menu. My dad actually pulled out my chair. I thought, this is it. This is the moment. Maybe they'd noticed how hard I'd been working. Maybe they were going to say they were proud. My mom waited until the appetizers were cleared. Then she folded her hands on the table, tilted her head in that particular way she had, the way that always meant she'd already decided something, and she said, "Claire, we've been meaning to have this conversation for a while. You're 25 now. You're an adult. And we think it's time you knew the truth. You're adopted. We took you in when you were 4 months old. I didn't speak. I physically could not. My dad added, there were financial incentives at the time. Tax credits, subsidies. It made sense for us then. And my mother looked me in the eyes and said, but you're grown now. So those benefits don't apply anymore. And honestly, we feel like we've done our part. That's when the room went very, very quiet for me. Not because I was breaking, because I had been waiting for this moment for 8 months. 8 months earlier, I had gotten a DNA test. Not because I suspected anything. Not because I had some dramatic hunch. I did it because a coworker brought a kit into the office as a joke. One of those find out if you're secretly royalty things, and I did it mostly to have something to talk about at lunch. The results came back on a Tuesday morning. I was eating a granola bar at my desk when I opened the app. And there they were, 47 DNA matches. Cousins, second cousins, one listed as close family, a woman named Sandra Voss. The app estimated she was either an aunt or a half-sibling. She had a profile photo. Dark hair, a smile that looked, in a way I couldn't explain and couldn't stop staring at, like looking in a mirror. I sat in my car on my lunch break and I cried for 20 minutes. Then I wiped my face, walked back inside, and started investigating. I messaged Sandra that same night. I told her I thought we might be related. I was calm, professional almost. She responded within an hour. She told me her older sister, Renata, had placed a baby girl for adoption 25 years ago after a difficult situation with a boyfriend who disappeared. They had never stopped wondering what happened to her. Sandra and I video called 3 days later. By the end of the call, we were both crying. By the following month, I had spoken to Renata, my biological mother, twice. She was soft-spoken and careful with her words, like someone who had practiced being gentle because life had required it of her. She had 3 other children. I had biological siblings. A grandmother named Estelle, who, Sandra told me, cried when she heard I'd made contact. I want to be very clear about something. I did not rush this. I did not throw myself into their lives desperately. I had spent 25 years loving people who treated me like a line item on a tax return. I was not going to make the same mistake twice. I took my time. I asked hard questions. I watched how they treated each other, how they spoke about difficult things, how they handled conflict. What I found was the opposite of everything I had grown up with. They were loud and warm and argumentative in the way that meant they actually cared about the outcome. Estelle called me baby girl the 3rd time we ever spoke, and it nearly destroyed me in the best possible way. Renata never once asked me for anything. She just kept saying, I just want to know you, whatever that looks like for you. By month 4, I was having Sunday dinners over video call with people who actually wanted me there. By month 6, we had planned something else entirely. Sandra had mentioned she and Renata were planning to visit the city for a weekend in early March. Estelle wanted to come too. They wanted to finally meet me in person, a real dinner, somewhere nice. I picked the date. I picked the restaurant. I picked Aldane's. Because 3 weeks before that, my mother had called to schedule my birthday dinner, and something in me, cold and precise and completely done, thought, let them say what they've always meant to say. Let them finally be honest. And let me be ready. I didn't tell Renata and Sandra everything. I just told them the dinner with my adoptive parents might run a little emotionally heavy, and asked if they'd be comfortable arriving at 7 and waiting at a table near the back until I texted them. Sandra, who had a streak of the dramatic in her, said, "Oh, we will absolutely be there." So when my mother folded her hands and told me I had served my purpose, I already knew what I was going to do. I let her finish. I let my father add his part about the tax credits and the subsidies and how they felt they'd done their due diligence as people. I let the full, ugly truth of 25 years sit on that linen tablecloth between us. Then I took a slow sip of water, set the glass down carefully, and I said, "Thank you for finally being honest with me. I actually have something to tell you too." My dad frowned. My mom tilted her head again. "I found my biological family 8 months ago," I said. "We've been in contact since then. I've met my biological mother, my aunt, my grandmother, and my 3 siblings." I paused. "They're actually here tonight. They've been sitting at the table by the window for the last 40 minutes. My mother turned around so fast she nearly knocked over her wine." Renata gave a small wave. Sandra smiled. Estelle, 71 years old, silver-haired, completely unbothered, raised her water glass in a quiet toast. The color left my mother's face in a way I will never forget for as long as I live. "You planned this," my dad said. His voice had gone flat. "You planned me," I said. "I just planned better." I stood up, smoothed my jacket, placed enough cash on the table to cover my appetizer and nothing else. "I won't be available for loans, cosigns, or favors going forward," I said. "I won't be attending holidays. I won't be answering calls I don't want to answer. And I want you to know, not out of anger, just so you have accurate information, that I am genuinely, completely fine." I walked across that restaurant. Estelle stood up before I even reached the table and put both arms around me. And I let her, and it felt like something in my chest that had been locked for 25 years just quietly opened. We had a 3-hour dinner. We laughed loudly enough that other tables looked over. Richard and Diane were gone within 10 minutes of me leaving their table. I don't know what they told themselves on the drive home. I don't know how they explained it to Theo, or to the neighbors, or to themselves in the quiet of their carefully decorated house. I don't think about it much. I have Sunday dinners to get to.